Welcome to another Hard Knocks podcast. We're going to unpack week one.
It's almost like a soft opening.
Yeah?
Where you see how these human-managed teams do against the CPU.
So the Coyotes, led by Don Fest, came into this one with a win-now mandate. They ended up falling short, though, against the CPU-controlled Cincinnati Blue Cats.
Yeah, that's right. The final score was 17-14. It was a close one.
A nail-biter. But if you look at the game summary, the Coyotes actually dominated time of possession. They held onto the ball for almost all of the first quarter.
It sounds like they were trying to wear down the Blue Cats' defense, control the pace of the game, but they couldn't quite turn that possession time into points.
Right, and then you look at Houston's quarterback, Demario Lamar. Yeah. He only completed 5 of his 14 passing attempts for a measly 61 yards.
5 for 14, that's rough. Makes you wonder if maybe he was feeling the pressure of those win-now expectations, or maybe he just wasn't comfortable with the playbook yet.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward.
For sure, for sure.
Cincinnati's quarterback, Jay Alcorn, he had a much better day, over 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Alcorn had a solid game, but he wasn't perfect. He did throw an interception, and he got sacked 5 times.
5 sacks.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt.
It definitely raises some questions about that offensive line. If I were an opposing manager, I would definitely be trying to exploit that weakness.
So what's the big takeaway here for our listeners?
Well, I think it's a reminder that even with a win-now mentality, success isn't guaranteed in progression football. It takes more than just talent. You need a solid strategy. You need to be able to adapt to your opponent.
Speaking of new beginnings, though, let's shift gears and talk about the New Orleans Boars and their new manager, Snacker69.
Snacker69, a name that's already generating some buzz. Taking over a team with a win-now expectation.
But they are facing some challenges right out of the gate.
Some challenges. I mean, they're starting with a tight salary cap, only $22.7 million. Team chemistry is neutral.
And the team culture sitting at 30%.
30%. That's rough. It seems like Snacker69 has their work cut out for them. Makes you wonder what kind of approach they're going to take.
Right. Will they go on a spending spree to bring in some big names? Or will they try to, build from within?
Well, with that salary cap, they might not have a lot of room to spend. I think we might see Snacker69 prioritize player development, maybe to try to find some hidden gems in the draft.
That's a really interesting thought. I've heard some people say that those win-now expectations can put a lot of pressure on a new manager, especially in a simulated environment like this.
Yeah, I think that's true. Every decision really matters, and that margin for error it's so small. It's like a game of chess.
But isn't that part of the fun?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a challenge to try to, outsmart the other managers and build a winning team. And let's not forget about those neutral team chemistry numbers.
Oh, yeah, good point. That could be a wild card.
Yeah.
I mean, it could mean that they're cohesive and ready to go, or it could mean there's some underlying tension that could just blow up at any moment.
So for our listeners out there who are also managing teams, what can they learn from these early games and these early decisions?
That's a great question. We're already seeing some valuable lessons here.
Give us the inside scoop.
Well, first off, it's clear that those win-now expectations don't automatically translate to wins on the field. The Coyotes are a perfect example of that.
Right.
It's not enough to just have talent. You need a sound strategy, and you need to be able to make adjustments.
Make adjustments on the fly.
Exactly. And then with Snacker69 in New Orleans, it really highlights how important it is to understand your team's strengths and weaknesses.
And not being afraid to make those tough decisions.
Exactly. Whether it's navigating that salary cap or dealing with the team chemistry, a good manager has to be adaptable and resourceful.
It sounds like Snacker69 has a real challenge on their hands this season.
They do, but you know what they say, pressure makes diamonds.
Ooh, I like that. What are some things that our listeners should be thinking about as they manage their own teams?
Don't panic if your team doesn't come out firing on all cylinders right away. It takes time to find your groove, figure out what works best for your team.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment with different strategies and lineups. You never know what you might find.
So embrace that learning process.
Absolutely. Progression football is all about adapting and evolving as a manager.
And having fun.
Of course. Of course it's a game.
It is a game. Well, thanks for breaking down all the action with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Always happy to talk progression football.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for this week's Hard Knocks podcast.
And keep an eye on those team culture and chemistry numbers. They can tell you a lot about your team.
Thanks for listening, and knock that subscribe button hard.